So after an almost 2-year break of Hunter x Hunter, Yoshihiro Togashi has come back and once again completely changed the status quo, turned the entire story on its head, and all of our speculations and theories about what's going to happen, what could happen with the story for the past 2 years, he's just like, nah, son, I'm going to sprinkle this flavor in and just do something that you totally didn't expect. It is mind-blowing to me how he keeps all of this straight within his head, and just, props to Togashi as a writer, man. This is absolutely insane. All right, so we get another huge revelation in this chapter 401. I'm going to assume that you've already read it if you're watching this review. So let's get into it, man. So we have Kurapika here, who is kind of interrogating all of the bodyguards one by one because, hey, there's a serial killer aboard the ship that's using silent majority that kills people with snakes. You know, that's just one of the many, many threads that are going on here between the Succession War, the Phantom Troops, Serenich, Beyond Netero, Hisoka. We have just so many plot threads. The mafia groups with Morena and her power growing. Just so many things that are happening here. But anyways, one of these 70 things to pay attention to is the fact that Kurapika is trying to figure out who this goddamn assassin is, and he's been trying to figure it out in our real time for like 4 years now. So he brings in one of the bodyguards that has been around, but you never really thought too much of her. Longi, I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name, but she comes in and basically says, hey, we don't need to do the deviation test. I can use Nen. In fact, I have this contract ability that I want you to sign that you team up with Tebepa, which is who she works for, so that there is no bad blood between us, and together we can figure something out. Well, what are we trying to figure out? Well, apparently this bodyguard claims that she is one of the children of Beyond Netero, who has been steadily infiltrating the Kakin Empire for many, many years, impregnating a bunch of women like goddamn Genghis Khan. He even looks like Genghis Khan. And he's been subtly trying to take over the Kakin Empire from the inside, which would actually make a lot of sense because he is kind of like helping to fund this mission to the Dark Continent and using the resources and, getting the king on his side in his favor and everything. And the interesting thing about this, bringing Beyond Netero back into the story, is that, back in the very beginning, like right after the election arc, right as we were beginning to get into the meat of the Succession War and everything, the entire beginning process was all about the Dark Continent, to the point where we were like, oh, this is going to be the Dark Continent arc, right? And Beyond Netero was being propped up to seem like he was going to be the next main antagonist, or at least somebody to really focus on. And then he kind of went away for a while because they have to keep him kind of chained up within the ship, and he's got a watchful eye on him from the Zodiacs and everything. And we kind of moved away from Beyond Netero to focus on the Succession War being the primary factor of the story. And so it seemed like the whole point of him being locked up in terms of like the writing is that we're going to hold on to Beyond Netero, and then once the Succession War is over and we get to the Dark Continent, he's then going to be, kind of propped up back into the story. He's going to come back into play. Well, this chapter seems to say, nope, there was an entire reason why we did that when we did it, and he actually is going to be a major part of the Succession War with this sort of like creating his legacy by basically kind of impregnating all of these Kakin women, including what might be one of the princes in the Succession War. But let me back up a little bit and try to go in order. So Longi claims that she's one of the children of Beyond Netero, but it's not like a happy family situation. Instead, it seems like Beyond is going to use his children as a method of gaining power for himself, in that he has cursed them with his own Nen ability, whatever it is, that their Nen awakened when they were children and got steadily more powerful to the point where there's going to be a curse enacted upon their death. So Togashi's been building up this Nen after death thing for quite some time. He touched on it a little bit in the Chimera Ant arc. It's what resurrected Hisoka after he fought Crollo. And so, like, he's been kind of hammering home the point of, like, Nen after death is a very powerful thing. And I always thought it was going to come into play within the Succession War because, and this is a different tangent of which I won't get in on, but every time a prince dies, it shows those, like, those 14 or 13 coffins that are all around that center stage that the king has been putting the prince's bodies in after they die. So I always assumed there was going to be some kind of ritual, some kind of Nen ritual to get into the Dark Continent. So anyways, the point being, the concept of Nen after death has been a very prominent story point for quite some time, and this just continues to solidify that. So he's created all these children that have infiltrated Kakin as soldiers, as bodyguards, as all of these people, and there is an event that is going to happen potentially at some point where they are going to be killed, and upon their death, it's going to activate the Nen curse and kill a target, life for a life, that sort of thing. So she's basically come to the conclusion that this is going to happen specifically to take out the princes, but leave a prince in power to win the succession war, and that specific prince is also a child of Beyond Netero. And this would allow Beyond to kind of have influence and take over the Kakin Empire without, doing it himself, without taking down the king. He'll have a child of his in power and be able to control and manipulate them or do whatever that takes. And this also feeds into the themes of the arc because, with the actual Kakin prince in the succession war, there's this whole theme of this power play and this theme of lineage, with kingdoms and how a child would take over the power of the ruler. But there's also this idea of the original ruler not wanting to give away that power. There was a close-up shot of that painting of Saturn eating his child. But you're like, wait a minute. Okay, so if you're saying that one of the princes is Beyond Netero's child, how does that work? Because don't you have to have royal blood in order to be in the succession war? And the Kakin king has multiple brides. How does this work? Well, the entire succession war ritual really only needs the prince to be the biological child of one of the wives. It's a little bit of a loophole, maybe one that the king doesn't even realize himself. And this has actually been stated before, and nobody really questioned it. Nobody really said, wait, does he have to be do the princes have to be the biological child of the king? But then again, why would you assume that they wouldn't be, right? You would just assume that obviously the king has all his concubines and he's made multiple children and that's just the way it is. Well, apparently the loophole in the ritual is they don't have to be biologically the king's child. They just have to be biologically one of the concubines or one of his wives, So everything is in the clear here, and this actually works, and there's no plot holes to behold here. So wild, Togashi, hats off to you. So then the question becomes, which one of the princes is Beyond Netero's child? And by doing this sort of team up between Longi and Kurapika, it ensures that their princes, which is Tebepa and Wobble, the baby, they'll be okay for the time being as we figure out who is actually Beyond's child, and then try to kill them off because that would be the most dangerous one to win. And also just sort of fuck my dad for not, putting a curse on me since I was a child. I'm going to take away what he's wanted. So definitely makes sense. Now, if you want my theory about which of the princes is Beyond's child, I feel like the obvious answer would be Wobble, be the child that Kurapika is protecting. Also, it mentions that their Nen awakens when they were babies, when they were infants. So I'm sure there's going to be a moment where that happens. If I am correct, I still don't think we know what the Nen beast of Wobble is. I really wanted to reread the Succession War before the new chapter came out. I didn't get a chance to, so it's been 2 years since I've read it. So I can't quite remember, but I think that would be the obvious choice. And then also, that means that Beyond would have the most influence over him because he is just an infant, so he can just raise him the way that he wants to raise him. All the other characters have kind of their own personalities. They're all their own people at this point, so it'd be a little bit more difficult for Beyond to come in and be like, hey, by the way, I'm your dad. You should do this as king. It'd be a little bit difficult there, but if it's a baby, you can raise it right from the get-go. But it is kind of the obvious answer, so going beyond that, a stupid maybe way to look at it is Beyond has dark hair, and there's only 3 princes that have dark hair. You have Fugetsu, which is not going to be her because she was a twin with another character that had blonde hair. So that's probably out of the way. Then you have Tyson and Mariam. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he's had an interesting ability where he's kind of had this kind of pocket dimension protecting him. So that's, definitely up there. Another maybe prominent clue would be Camilla, because she does have this sort of Nen after death ability specifically, where if she gets taken out, her Nen beast activates and sucks the life force out of somebody else and gives it back to her. And she is also, I believe, the one that is in charge of the Untouchables. So this is another Nen after death curse, where they are soldiers that have basically a target, one of the princes, that they think about and wish death upon and wish horrible things upon, and they basically kind of build up this negative energy over time. And their whole mission is that they have to kill themselves in front of the prince, and then the curse will activate and take out the prince. And in the last chapter of 400, Fugetsu is dealing with something that seems very similar to that. I don't believe it's confirmed, but that was my theory, how she's having all this kind of like negative energy and these ghostly like spirits, and she's kind of like, it seems like she's poisoned with Nen. And I theorized that that was the building of the untouchable curse. Like somebody around her has been doing this, and it's building and it's building, and she's more susceptible to it because she's depressed over the death of her sister. So it seems like she would be the target of that. So all of those things are going on at the same time. So you have the curse of the Untouchables, you have Beyond Netero and their curse that's building, you have whatever potential ritual that is happening with the deaths of the princes themselves. So all of these things are happening at the same time. But having all this information come out from a character that, you never thought twice about to begin with, it actually is a little bit in Togashi's style, because I feel like he did the same thing with like Welfin back in the Chimera Ant arc, where it's just another Chimera Ant character. It's not one of the royal guards. It's not the king. It's not going to be a character that matters. And then by the end of the arc, it's one of the most important characters in the entire arc. And what is so fascinating about his writing style here is that he's given every single character, no matter how small, a pivotal role to play in the story, and it really makes the world feel fleshed out, that everybody has their own ideas, opinions, goals, powers, abilities, alliances. It's not just like Kurapika, you know what I mean? Like it's every character, it's all the princes, it's all the bodyguards, it's all the mafia, and everybody has a role to play. And it's just incredible to me that he can continue this, and then also throw in a plot twist like this that calls back to the very beginning of the story arc and also gives us so much more information going forward. Now, originally, I had always theorized that this was going to be 2 arcs. I thought we were going to have the Succession War, and then we were going to have the Dark Continent, and the Dark Continent probably being the final arc of the series, especially given the outside fact of Togashi's health conditions and how difficult it is for him to write and draw. I would assume that the series wouldn't go on too much longer. But now, reading this chapter, I feel like this might all be in one. I feel like, because I used to think that the ship was going to sink like the Titanic, like something bad was going to happen, with all this chaos brewing, with all these moving pieces and all these powerful characters. I assumed that at some point the ship was going to have a massive cataclysmic damage done to it, and it was going to sink, and we were going to have basically the finale of the arc take place on the sinking ship, with many, many casualties, and then whoever was left over would go on to be in the Dark Continent arc. Now I'm not thinking the same. I still think the ship will sink, because that's just a very dynamic thing to put in a story, a giant sinking ship. I mean, come on, you want to do that, right? But now I'm thinking that this whole arc will take us to the Dark Continent and beyond. I'm thinking the Succession War may continue going into the Dark Continent, but there are different different things that need to happen before that happens, because they were supposedly going to drop everybody off at a fake Dark Continent first and then continue to the Dark Continent. And there's also supposed to be some kind of, once again, ritual that you need to do to get into the Dark Continent, which I always thought had to do with all the princes' deaths. But now I really don't know. Oh, I guess I should also mention that at the tail end of the chapter, we do see Beyond for the first time in many, many years. He's having a little bit of a banter with one of the Zodiacs, and then he asks to see somebody. And who could that be? I think it would be way too obvious to ask to see one of his children. I think it might be, obviously, the way Togashi writes, he's always subverting what you think. So it could be a completely different character. It could be the Zodiac that's the monkey Zodiac that's on his side, you know, kind of secretly. So he could be trying to get more information. I don't really know, but it's interesting to see him. It's interesting to see Beyond in the story because literally I thought they were like, okay, we're just going to put Beyond in a literal box and we're going to save him for the Dark Continent. And now it's like, nope, guess what? I'm a big part of the story once again. But man, like all these powerful characters, like if you got Beyond, you got Serenich, you got Hisoka, you got the Phantom Troop, you have all of these insanely powerful characters that are just growing in their strengths and manipulations. And I just, dude, I cannot even imagine. I can't. That's what I'm saying. Like, what's your theory for what's going to happen? I can't even imagine. Like, I don't know where this is going to go. But that's what's exciting to me is that I'm excited to see where it goes from here. So we at least, bare minimum, have 9 more weeks of Hunter x Hunter chapters to go through before we get a break again. So, man, I'm excited to see where it goes. So let me know what you guys think about Chapter 401 down below. Leave all your thoughts, comments, opinions, theories. I would love to hear it, man. Give the video a thumbs up and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. Thanks as always for watching, guys. If you want to support the channel at a deeper level, I do have channel memberships, Patreon, and all the social media links where you can follow me down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you later.